Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. And with some reaction to Dashy's tweets about the disappointing CDL servers, the OpTic guys have also revealed what is holding them back right now from hitting the levels they were right at the start of this year, saying that consistency in terms of mindsets might be holding them back for at least the rest of this stage. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to discuss today. A remarkable series yesterday where FaZe will get taken down 3-1 by Los Angeles Guerrillas. Slasher tweets this one out. Of course, there was an awful lot of reaction to this, right? And it definitely makes things really spicy indeed, especially on the Los Angeles Guerrillas side, because I was thinking that realistically, for them to be safe for the World Championship, they need like 155 points. They were until yesterday on 125, then I won 135. And I was just wondering, okay, where do they get their series wins from based on the way they were looking before? Now they've beaten FaZe. They're going to need to, of course, keep up a level of consistency. They do play on it again today. We'll have a look at the matches, of course, here in just a few minutes' time. Some updates as well on this, because, of course, Doug Martin, he's still, seemingly knocking on the league's door every single day to try and get an update on what might be going on with the Challengers World Championship format. As Major Maniac says, the growth of our esport will continue to be hindered without proper support and a channel of communication between challengers and a league level. The players have called for discussion regarding a format change, still zero response. And then yesterday, Doug comes back and says, well said, Mike, would love to see a community update this week discussing change at Spinnerspets. I guarantee Doug is in the kind of the emails of Spinnerspets and Deadly on site every day. I'm sure he's sending follow-ups every single day on this stuff. So, we'll see if anything changes. But Doug is certainly leading the charge and doing it publicly, and I imagine privately as well behind the scenes. This also from Clayster, of course, stuck down there. I guess their plan is, we looked at yesterday the fact that Clayster made some team changes. He's going to go with a different roster with Dave Penny in the team now going into the Boston event, and hopefully, of course, to win the qualifier, which I'm pretty sure only one team will get through from the North American side into the World Championship on the current format at the very least. As Clay says, truly can't wait for this year to be over. So sick of the uncertainty, unemployed in 60 days, right? So that's the issue, as he kind of says right here. He's had potentially like 4 pro spot opportunities this year, but it just hasn't happened. Don't know why I'm doing it, because I've already been, screwed over for a pro spot 4 times this year. I'm stuck in challenges doing scrims and stuff like that. So tough scenes for Clay. I'm guessing the buyout situation on New York just didn't work for any team. They couldn't come to a loan arrangement or whatever. Clayster seemed really frustrated about this early on in the year, because he did have offers. Teams and players wanted him. I guess thankfully for Clayster, his contract is now at a close. At the 1+1 is at an end. New York, and he can walk away from New York if he wants to. And you'd imagine, based on the way they're currently performing, they're probably not going to bring him back into the team next year, so he's going to need to look for another offer. And I thought it was rather interesting. He says, join Discord, let's virtually hang out, just because we heard some maybe, rumours earlier on the season. Could Clayster possibly go to the 100 Thieves squad, the Los Angeles Thieves squad, if Octane continues to underperform? He's been looking much better as of late, so it seems unlikely, but I'm still something to think about where Clayster could go for next year, because players certainly still want to play with him, just the contract stuff couldn't work out this year, so I imagine he gets a spot next year if he does want to still compete, as he certainly does. He says that if he doesn't get a spot at the start of next year, that's going to be it though for his career. Speaking of New York right now, I thought this is interesting from Paulx, because the last couple of seasons, really, London at New York as well, he's been brought in kind of middle of the year and has done a remarkable job for the teams that he has joined, but saying here that he was hoping that at some point or another he could actually get brought in from the start rather than just coming in to fix a team, right? We'll keep fighting one match at a time. And New York right now put themselves in a position we talked about before this stage. They need to go 4-1, 5-0. If they do get to that point, they can reasonably go into the major and qualify here. If they go 5-0, they can probably get away with a top 4 maybe at the major. Definitely a top 3 should be good enough for the World Championship if they go 5-0. But ideally, of course, they need to make the grand finals. But still, who knows what happens to the other teams, because a few teams around them right now, especially Minnesota and Florida, they're looking pretty terrible. And New York honestly are thinking, wow, we can catch these guys. They are very much within touching distance right now. But of course, the team that New York beat yesterday, none other than, Sib and the Seattle Surge guys. Vanguard might be the hardest game to be consistent at of all time, he reckons. Certainly, since winning, Seattle don't quite look the same team. Bance says real talk. Clayster says real talk as well in the replies. And even FaZe losing yesterday, right? So definitely Vanguard is a different game to what we've seen in previous games. And we've seen no team this year has managed to repeat a championship victory. Definitely part of that is on Vanguard as a game, but I certainly think there's some teams that really put their head down and grinded, right? New York seems to be one of those teams especially. Grinding in silence behind the scenes, come into these games, their half one still looks phenomenal. It's it's exciting to watch how this is going to play out, but it is far from clear cut what's going to happen the rest of this year, especially with Vanguard on display. But it might not just be a Vanguard issue, it could also be a problem with the league servers themselves. As Dashy said last night, these league servers are a joke, fake gameplay being displayed. I remember kind of when the league first went online back in Modern Warfare, all the talk was about fake Call of Duty, the fact that these online servers, the games that are being played were not legitimate, not representative, and even in previous seasons before that as well. I'm pretty sure when did fake COD really first come around? Pretty sure people talked about fake COD back in World War II at the Birmingham event when they had those E-armor monitors. They weren't official CDL ones, so people said they had more delay than the normal ones, and everyone everyone was saying it was that fake COD for the weekend, effectively, and nothing really counted. Even Dashy's kind of implying right here that, like, okay, there's some fake gameplay going on. Like, some of these series results aren't legitimate based on the way these servers are going. And I mentioned yesterday the fact that, like, in Paris, I thought they were in Texas, and I was thinking back to myself afterwards, there's no way Paris are actually funding this team to be in Texas, right? It's like, I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure most of the players that might have been based there at the start of the year, but now, of course, they made some changes. Gravity, like, he's not in Texas, to my understanding. Johnny as well, I think Temp might be in Atlanta right now, so I think they're relatively well spread. So it's tough to say exactly which server OpTic might have been playing them on, but they reckon maybe the Ohio server, right? So definitely, like, Dashy is not convinced these servers are any good. Of course, they won the Paris series regardless, but the big talking point actually from other teams was really the Boston breach. Method even says in the replies, like, I mean, effectively, Dashy's lighting money on fire here. Maybe the CDL fines will come into effect. We saw this, of course, a few days ago from Nero Poison of the Boston breach, and had a nightmare. I was on 65 ping in my league match shooting marshmallows out of my gun. How did you guys sleep? And that was in the series against LA Thieves very recently indeed. So definitely does seem to be some support here for Dashy's idea that, yeah, these servers are nowhere near good enough to actually make this viable, right? And it's frustrating we're still playing online league matches at this point in the CDL. We'd hoped all of this stuff would be on LAN, but, you know, it is what it is, I suppose. It makes sense from a logistical perspective, but it does mean they're going to have to deal with some of these issues, right? Because, yes, all this talk has been about the fact that they have, like, a ping neutralizer or whatever. If one team has a higher ping, they can kind of change it so that everyone's playing on the same, but does it necessarily work if the players aren't in the same place? That's another question as well, like, or if the distances are too great, or if the server might not be particularly good. There was, of course, a lot of talk about this from Slasher back in, of course, well, the Modern Warfare days as well, when he was playing in Los Angeles. He had to either play a Texas server or play on, like, a server on the East Coast because there weren't enough servers. Now, apparently there are enough servers, but maybe they aren't of the quality that, of course, well, people like Dashy might want them to be. So let's, of course, talk briefly about this OpTic series. Yesterday, they beat Paris Legion, who's really impressed at the end of the day. Tonight is really a big test up against the New York Subliners, especially based on what happened last time around in Major 3, when New York got the better of them. But even as the tap says, you know, Illy returning, of course, a massive deal for OpTic. And as Rambo Ray says, fun to see Illy doing his thing again. Still have some rough edges to smooth them out, though. We've been making progress every day this week. And one of these ideas, actually, that Rambo is talking about is that since Illy's return, the kind of mindset of the team isn't quite necessarily where it might have been before. Scump says there's something to do with his, like, gamer grip melted off or something, so he couldn't aim, so maybe that's why Scump was kind of struggling in some of these situations, but I guess he'll be back in business and get that sorted out for today. And, well, of course, as Illy said as well after the game in the post-game interview, get better every single day. The goal is the World Championship, right? He didn't say specifically the goal is to win Major 4. The goal, of course, is to win champs, but, like, they're just trying to get the best practice they can and look as good as they possibly can going into Major 4, so they can try and win the big one at the end of the day. But it might take them a few weeks or days to actually probably get back into their groove, because as Illy says, more work to be done. We will get it done. And actually, Rambo mentioned on stream the fact that their consistency in terms of their mindset isn't quite there right now. Seems like since Illy's return, they haven't quite been able to lock in quite on the same level as they were, let's say, in stage 1, and all get the mindset in the right place to make sure they're, well, pretty much all on the same page throughout the rest of the season as well. I'm sure Illy and Rambo are trying to work on that as quickly as they can, but that's the thing, when a player steps out of the team for a little bit, it can be a little bit challenging to get back into the groove.
But yeah, we played our scrims. Our scrims the last 2 days, there's a lot of brilliance. I think there's just, like, we were dealing with some consistency issues on some of the mindsets. I think it's just really like the next couple of weeks, including, I mean, starting whenever Inter came back, is really just breaking bad habits. Like, we had a few really big heart-to-heart discussions the last couple of days about our mindset and how we go about playing certain situations. And I think like we had a really big talk about like everyone being invested into the process again, and really making sure that everyone's being open-minded about changing their ways, because we've just fallen in some bad habits that are just like we need to break.
But Illy did mention, of course, as well, the fact that, like, he's been watching all their scrims, he's been playing along in all their matches, so, like, look, as Rambo says, the consistency might not be there right now. Certainly some concerning words to a degree in terms of how good they're going to be, because right now they're not exactly in the best of positions in terms of making a run here through to the winners bracket of the Major. They're in an okay position, don't get me wrong, but it's far from guaranteed right now, so they're still going to certainly need to improve on the way they performed yesterday against Paris Legion. But look, it's Paris, they got a nice little start to warm up. Whether they can continue that run is another question, and I'm sure they're expecting to improve every single series they play, pretty much from here out to the rest of the season as well. And this is just looking at the kind of, well, situation as it stands. We've got Los Angeles Thieves 130, Rokkr 120, Mutineers 120 as well, and Subliners, they are absolutely on the charge right now. They play OpTic today, and then Thieves next week. So both massive games. Thieves, honestly, a big game for them today, because they played Paris. Like, of course, look, that's a must-win, but Paris want to get their revenge as well. Just wanted to look real quick here at the standings, at least within this stage. OpTic now 1-2. Now, this hasn't been updated on COD Gamepedia yet for FaZe and Los Angeles Guerrillas, so LA LAG are now 1-2 on the same map count as OpTic, and FaZe, of course, 2-1. But it's big actually that OpTic 3-1'd yesterday rather than 3-2'd or something, because now their map win percentage, as you can see, is now 6-7 so far this stage, which means a 46% map win percentage, which is better than the other teams in 1-2. So this is actually good news for OpTic, just because, like, ideally, of course, as I said yesterday, they 3-0'd that series, but 3-1 is acceptable because it means that against the other teams that they potentially are going to get tied against at 2-3, let's just say, if they go 2-3 here, they should still make winners as long as they can maintain a good map count, a better map count than some of their rivals. But of course, ideally, they just win both of their series and get through. But of course, tonight against New York and next week against Toronto is going to be far from easy. And of course, Donny Tempe's looking for revenge today. He was frustrated, very frustrated about their performance against OpTic. Like, I mean, Paris, they tried their best, but they just always lose. The league is just too good this year outside of Paris, unfortunately. It's pretty sad to see. But maybe they have a better chance today. Who knows? These are the three matches of the day. Boston versus Los Angeles Guerrillas. Like, a really interesting series, actually, because both of these teams really like to, well, try and play Kavutu when they necessarily shouldn't be at times. They're probably going to end up squaring up on Bacage again, right? Because Boston like it, and Los Angeles Guerrillas just beat FaZe on it, right? So they'll probably play Bacage in this series, which definitely seems to be a trend as the season progresses. Teams are just playing more and more Bacage, especially the lower, kind of lower echelon teams, you could argue, just because it gives them a chance, in theory, to take down the top dogs on what might be considered a kind of 50-50 map at times. But certainly Boston versus Guerrillas, tough to say, really. Like, I saw a lot from LAG yesterday that I thought was impressive, but I do wonder whether, like, does Huke just turn up against FaZe in, like, must-win series? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, I'm not really sure. Boston have looked good so far. Like, I think that Vivid, of course, playing against his former team, Los Angeles Guerrillas, he tends to always get revenge on teams that he's beaten. Like, he's really good in those matchups generally, so I feel like Boston here, I'm going to favour them slightly. Tough to say, though, in a way, just because LAG looked great yesterday, but I've yet to see, really, but I've yet to be convinced that they can keep up that level of consistency, whereas so far here in Stage 4, Boston have looked relatively good in most of the series that they've played, apart from the Los Angeles Thieves one. But, well, we talked about the ping situation that kind of Dashy and the guys were describing there. So yeah, I'm going to take Boston here, probably in a 3-1. Then Thieves Paris. Look, I can't bet against Thieves just because it's Paris on the other side. They will probably look okay and then just lose anyway. That's just how it goes. But it would be a massive victory. This would be a key moment for Paris to actually take a scalp and win their first series in what would be 101 days. Last time they won a series in official CDL matches was back in the end of March, which is just crazy. They did want to come to the Prime Classic, but, you know, in terms of CDL points, that doesn't count. And if Thieves were to lose here then and be stuck on 130, then New York would be, well, super optimistic and potentially even catching them up, right? So it'd be a good time for Paris at least to take a scalp in terms of the World Championship fight and putting Thieves in a tough spot, but I imagine they'll get through it anyway. And then OpTic versus New York, right now on current form, I've got to favour New York. It's just how it is. They're looking so good in their hardpoint. OpTic yesterday looked okay against Paris, but not exactly spectacular. Their control, I think, is probably the deciding factor here, because if OpTic can win it, I think they have a great chance. But if New York win it, I'm almost certain that New York will take this series. They're too good in hardpoint. The search and destroy for OpTic as of yet, I haven't been completely sold on it. Of course, with Italy back, there should be better. And New York are always a bit suspect in a Game 5. So hopefully it is a Game 5 series, but I'm going to take New York maybe in a 3-1 fashion here. I feel like they're coming with the fire. OpTic, we just saw what Rama had to say, that he's not necessarily convinced that everything is quite there, clicking on all cylinders, I suppose, as of yet. And New York, well, they're on an absolute roll right now. They know if they win this one 4-0, 5-0 potentially next week on their match against Los Angeles Thieves, like, well, this World Championship run is most certainly on. And Crimsix versus Shotzi is potentially always a good time as well. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit on the like button. Tell the YouTube gods this is a good video, and as like you should see it as well. And I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you much as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.